Hi, welcome to another Fajardo Friday Life Lesson. And for those of you who have never seen one before, on Fridays, what I would do is give students my little tips on life, things that I think would help them prepare them for life outside of my subject area. And I do English, so this is something that I think I wish other adults would have done for me when I was in school to kind of just give me those little life things that could have helped me as I was growing up and getting into adulthood. Now, this particular Friday, I was supposed to do something very serious. If you tuned in last week, it was supposed to be a serious topic this week. However, this morning, something happened in my classes that I think would be very beneficial to keep in mind. I talked to my students about it. They were really responsive and they thought, wow, okay, I never thought about it this way before. So, okay, then that makes me feel like I really want to have this conversation with you. So, it has to do with finals week. We're getting into that. And my students ask me these same kinds of questions all the time when it comes to finals. The first one usually is, why do they make us do so much in a small amount of time? Why do they give us so much to study for? Why do they cram all of our tests into a couple of days? Why do we have to go through all of this? And I decided today, especially with what's going on in my life, to tell them, you know, when you become an adult, you're going to have a lot of points in your life where you're going to get slammed with so many things going on all at once. And I can think of things throughout my life where it's been like something went wrong with the house. I had a problem with the car. I had family members in the hospital. If you have kids, you can understand this where you've got activities and sports that you have to go through, so many different things that you have to do all at once. And of course, inevitably, there are going to be times where you are jam-packed with all of this stuff and a traumatic life event happens. And how do you deal with that then? How do you cope? How do you do stress management? How do you multitask? Time management. These are things that we need to know as adults. We need to be able to manage as an adult, but where do we learn them exactly? How do we teach this to our students? We can't exactly just throw them into life situations, traumatic life situations, to get them to experience what it's like to have to deal with anxiety and stress and deal with time management and multitasking. We can't give them those real world examples because, well, even to us as adults, when those things happen to us, we kind of consider it cruel and unusual punishment. And we're sitting here thinking, why would anybody make it? Why are we going through this? Why? What did I do to deserve to have all of this happen to me all at once? How do you teach that to students? How do you give them that? So, when it comes to finals, I tell my students exactly that. There aren't a whole lot of opportunities for us to teach you life skills. But through things like finals, where we do have to give you things where you do get a whole bunch of things that are crammed into a small amount of time, and you have to figure out how you're going to manage school activities, sports, job, family expectations. This is the easiest way, I think, to be able to give you scenarios where you have to deal with these kinds of feelings and not have it be so emotionally traumatizing like a real world experience would be. And then you learn the coping skills. Then you learn how to deal with anxiety. You learn how to manage everything. And the thing is, like, anxiety is anxiety. It's going to present itself in whatever scenario you put it in. So if we give students something like finals, where they have all of the stuff that they have to do all at once, then that is still an example and an opportunity for them to get those coping skills. And the students were like, oh wow, I never would have thought about it that way. Okay, yeah. And they are, at least the ones that I talked to, they seem to be a little bit more, at least for today, they were a little bit more willing to go through this process called finals and manage through it and accept what's happening to them. Okay? And again, how else are they going to learn it in a practice setting, if you will? And then inevitably, though, they ask me things like, well, but why do we have to learn all this information? I'm never going to use this. I'm never going to be, some big mathematician. I'm never going to be a scientist. Why do I have to know all of this stuff if I'm never going to get involved in this? I know what the typical answer is from teachers, and I'm not going to give you the typical answer, but like, At least in my personal opinion. I'm not going to give you the typical answer. I know that teachers say things like, well, you never know what kind of a job that you're going to have. You never know where you're going. There are lots of real world applications where you could end up using this kind of thing. I don't tell students, though, that. I look at it from a different angle. I look at it as you will never know when you get into a situation where somebody's going to need your help. Here's what I mean by that. I went to school to become an English teacher. I did not realize that when I would become an English teacher and I would get a job that in study hall, because I still have study hall duties. I have different things, intervention time. You have to work with kids, bring them in, help them out, mentoring, tutoring, whatever. There would be times, I never thought that there would be times where I would actually be helping students with math. I'm an English teacher. Thank goodness I know math, because then if a student comes to me and asks me for help, I can actually help them. I can't be like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that, and send them off to somebody else. There are a lot of there are a lot of students who might need help with math, and so what if all of the teachers are taken up? At least I can be of help in that situation. And I never thought I would end up being that. And the same thing goes with science. If someone comes to me with science problems, I am educated enough to where I could probably like sit down and work with them and try to help them through it. And that's one reason. The other reason why I feel like you need to learn these things, even though you personally don't feel like you're going to use them, consider it from this perspective. A child, your child, eventually, will come to you and ask you for help with homework. And to tell them that you don't know the answer is it's kind of devastating, because they believe in you. They believe that you can help them, and as a parent you want to be able to help them, but you have to know the information to be able to do that. And give you an example. My mom, she had planned, she wanted to become a fashion designer, designing clothes and interior design, all that. And she could have never known that she was going to have a daughter who wanted to be an English teacher. She could have never known that she was going to have a son who wanted to be a computer engineer, or another child who wanted to be, have their own business, or experience things in the military. They never could have known the kinds of lives that we were going to have. And to be able to help us achieve our dreams, and if we came to them for help, they could actually give us information to help us. It was very good for them. So while my mom did not have to know how to write a 5-paragraph essay in order for her to do fashion design, where she does measurements and sewing and all this other kind of stuff, she didn't have to know how to do a 5-paragraph essay. But her daughter, who wanted to become an English teacher, she was able to help her. And my mom is amazing when it comes to grammar, and I learned so much from her. And I had teachers. I had lots of teachers, but it truly, if I had to say that who taught me English the best, I would have to say it was my mom. And she wasn't an English teacher, and she wasn't ever planning to be. So if you ever are in a situation where you have children who end up being something that you're not, you may not want to be a mathematician, but your child might. And someday they're going to come to you and they're going to ask you for help. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to help them to some degree? Instead of being like, well, that's what teachers are for. Why don't you go look it up on YouTube? Okay, well, first of all, you have to know what you're looking for on YouTube. And you have to make sure that whatever it is you're looking up is actually quality, and it actually has the right answer. And to be honest, we've all, and nothing on on teachers, my fellow teachers, my friends who are teachers. I'm not focusing on this specifically with you, but even you as teachers, we have all had an experience where we were taught by someone who we felt wasn't a good teacher. And yet that's who you're telling us, that's who you're telling your child to go to, someone you possibly don't even think is a good teacher. So who's going to teach the child at that point? That's why I feel like if you are in school and you're learning things, don't necessarily have to learn them for yourselves, but there are people out there who do need to have you learn them so that you can help them later on. Just something to consider when you are dealing with school, when you're coming into finals or anything like that, or later on when you have your own children and they're asking you why they have to learn all of this stuff. It isn't necessarily because of you. It's because sooner or later they're going to need help someone else who is trying to learn about that subject. All right, there you go, Fajardo Friday. Thanks for listening.